Welcome, and our presentation on risk management detection response. I'm Tyson Choptain, and I'm joined today by John Martinuck, our cybersecurity lead in the Prairies region. So today, really quickly, what we're going to talk about is cybersecurity and some of the cybersecurity risks that we have and the options to help customers with those risks. And so we want to understand what the risks are and what has changed with the risks that we see in the modern day today, what a comprehensive cybersecurity looks like, and talk about Guardian Shield MDR and how it helps meet a lot of those challenges. So what are the risks that we are seeing for SMEs? When we talk SME, we talk small, medium enterprise, and really that's anyone from really 5 users to 5,000 users, depending on where you are in the country and what your size of your region is and the size of the organization you are. But we're talking about really every type of organization that there is out there today that's using IT, which is really every type of organization that there is. The risk, let's talk about that. I know we hear different statistics out there. I'll share a few more in a few minutes. This is an article from 2020, and it's probably one of the most powerful articles I've ever looked at or seen. If you've attended other cybersecurity presentations that we've done, you'll see that I've presented this before because the power of this article is very clear. This predicted back in 2021 that the risk of cybercrime would be somewhere in the 10.5 trillion range by 2025. And that's talking about it being larger than the drug trade worldwide. That's talking about it being larger than many major industries. We're at 2025. It's estimated to be more than 10.5 trillion this year. And just to put in perspective how big this threat is and how big this is as a industry, because in many parts of the world, cybercrime is an industry. It's operated like a business. And we see that it's technically right now the 5th or 6th largest business in the world, beating out healthcare worldwide, tourism, travel, agriculture, and food, massive industries that we see worldwide. And it's getting into the realm of manufacturing and finance and insurance and construction worldwide. That's how much money there is for the bad actors to make. And that's why they're constantly putting so much effort into it. And almost all other forms of crime, there's very few laws to manage and control it in the majority of countries in the world. Only recently have most of North America and Western Europe really starting to put decent cybersecurity laws in place, and they're almost impossible to have any impact outside of those countries or regions if the bad actors are coming from somewhere else. And the vulnerabilities and the risks are not reducing. 61% of SMEs in Canada were a target of a cyber attack last year. They weren't necessarily all successful, but they were a target. The average cost to a cybersecurity incident is estimated at $1 million. Now, if you're a very small organization, it's not going to be $1 million, but it's going to have the same impact of weight on a small company if it's $100,000 or even $100,000 or $50,000 as it is on a multi-million-dollar company if it's $1 million. So it scales, and there's companies that don't come back after they have a cyber attack because they can't survive it. The worst part is most that have one usually have another. 67% of cyber victims are attacked again within the next year because they don't do a good enough job of removing all of the remnants of what happened, or they don't have a combination of the monitoring of the right tools to understand if anything nefarious is still happening inside their network. The risk keeps changing, evolving, and growing, and it's not getting better. It's getting worse in the sense that it's getting more dangerous. Automated threats, higher attack volumes, AI being used by the bad actors to constantly change the quality of what they're using, how they're attacking, and the crafting of the messages that are coming to you. Although, funny enough, I saw the other day an article about the old-fashioned letter that your email that started, I don't know how long ago, saying, you're a descendant of some wealthy person in another country and there's money available for you, still works. Still makes money every year for the bad actors. So even the incredibly advanced things that they're doing today with cyber attacks, even the good old-fashioned simple letters style email that goes after people give up bank account information. It's another reason cybercrime has been on the rise that it's been on since approximately 2016. It went on a rise right around the same time that Bitcoin came onto the market. And as we have seen ransomware rise, we've seen Bitcoin value rise because it is a fantastic mechanism for monetizing cybercrime. It works a lot better than the traditional methods of payment. It's the easiest way. Ironically, even though it's the most trackable form of funds transfer, it's also the easiest form of funds transfer for the bad actors to use. And so as there's a better vehicle for them to get the money from the people that they compromise, it's allowed for a lot more compromise. What we're doing, the actions we're taking as users, COVID had a huge impact on this, is also having an impact on why we're seeing more cybercrime. We have hybrid work, we have increased cloud services, we have BYOD. Our networks are now the most complicated they've ever been. And the majority of organizations are living in this hybrid world where you still have all the on-premise infrastructure, servers in a server room, networking equipment, devices that sit on the network at your business operations all the time. And then you've got all the people that work remote and the laptops they take and use everywhere. How do we protect and defend all of those different ways that your network, and I say network because it's now all over the place, everywhere, all the time at once, how do we protect that properly? And that's left us at a point where cybersecurity is now the largest challenge it's ever been to deliver for us as a provider and for, organizations to be able to protect themselves. Here's some common assumptions that we deal with about how people deal with their cybersecurity risk today. I have good backups, I'm good. Absolutely. Good backups are a critical part of your cybersecurity plan when you get compromised. They don't do anything to help you from being compromised. They just help you with recovery and how you get back up and running. I have antivirus and a firewall. I'm protected. Great. Antivirus is based on knowing what the bad thing is as it's coming in. If it's a 0-day or just recently developed, you probably won't have a signature for your antivirus software to be able to recognize it. Firewalls can protect the bad stuff from getting in, but they can't protect the people inside doing bad stuff going out and allowing traffic that shouldn't come in. It's like a door. The door's great when the door's closed, but if you leave the door open, everything's coming in. I have cybersecurity insurance. I can survive a breach. Absolutely. You're going to get a lot of financial assistance from your cybersecurity insurance when you have a breach. It's still going to cause you downtime. It's still going to cause you either lost revenue, potentially lost employees, and a difficult operation of whatever type of organization you are while you're dealing with the breach. Yeah, the cybersecurity insurance helps cover the cost of it, but it doesn't do anything to mitigate the fact that it's happening. I'll be able to tell if it's going wrong. I won't have to be, preparing in advance. I'll be able to just react to it when it happens. You can't react because by the time it's happened, there is no reaction option except remediation. And most of the time, we see the bad actors are in an environment for months before they actually trigger anything bad. So by the time they're triggering whatever action they're using to compromise you, to try to get money from you, they've already taken data, they've already removed data, they've already destroyed backups potentially. They've taken a lot of actions to mitigate a lot of these other controls that you think you've put in place. And then there's a common assumption, especially on the ownership or C-level, is someone will manage this. And this is not an IT responsibility. This is a C-level responsibility. At the end of the day, if an organization gets compromised, yeah, you can fire your IT person. You can fire your managed services provider, your support group if you don't think they did a good enough job. Doesn't stop you from being compromised. At the end of the day, the person who's going to be most responsible for dealing with this is the person at the top. because they're the ones that's going to have to sign all the checks for all the costs that are going to be associated with this. And they're the ones that are going to have to deal with all the customers or other organizations that you work with to defend and explain why this was allowed to happen. I don't know if you've seen, but normally it's not the IT person who's the one that has to go in front of the press when there's a breach. It's usually the most senior people in the organization that have to do that. And most people today have tried to attack these problems by implementing tools, but they're only implementing a tool at a time. They're incomplete, they're often reactive, and they're often siloed, and they're not working together. It's like trying to build a house. You've gone out and bought a bunch of tools, but you don't even know what material you're building with yet. Well, why would you buy tools if you don't know what material you're working with? Because you don't know what kind of tools you're going to need. And then, do you have a plan? Have you built a house before? Do you know what you're going to do and how you're going to be building it? You need to have a plan as well. And then the plan needs to complement the right materials and the right tools. So what we've done and seen in the industry for a long time is an evolution of different security technologies to try to help with a lot of the problems I just talked about. EDR is what we've been hearing about for the majority of the last few years. It's endpoint detection response. It's really taking your antivirus up another level from traditional antivirus, where it's just signature based, and adding in anomaly based detection. And anomaly based detection is a nice fancy word for my computer's doing something it's not supposed to, and I, the user, and potentially your support team do not have the ability to know if it's supposed to be doing that or not. We need a security team to understand that. And endpoint detection response solutions give you the tool, but they don't give you the team. And network detection and response does a similar function on your network, on your servers, on your firewall, on the traffic that's going through your internet, but it's usually, again, focused just on that. XDR puts EDR and NDR together, which is much better. So now we're monitoring the endpoints, we're monitoring the network, but is anyone actually monitoring it? Who's looking at the signals that are coming? And do they have the necessary training and capability and availability to deal with the right information that's coming in and knowing how to respond to it? And that's where we get to MDR. We take EDR, NDR, put it together, and we add on a 24/7 security operations center of trained security professionals that know how to take the alerts and the information coming from those tools and action it accordingly and make sure the right steps are taken both while we're all awake working and while we're all asleep, and it's still active and the team is still active, able to mitigate and reduce threats when something is attempting to happen, and then alert the necessary people and work forward with the necessary remediation steps when something does happen. So that's the real difference. We have the EDR, protect the endpoints, NDR, protect the network and monitor the network. XDR puts those two together. MDR is where we really need to be, because you want that managed service level on the security services. So it is that really managed detection and response. And we want a 24/7 solution that's always protecting us completely. Who should use it? This is not a conversation about size of organization, what type of organization needs it. It fits everybody. There is not an organization that's using computers and the internet today that shouldn't have an MDR solution in place, because everyone has the same level of risk. The bad actors aren't just going over after the big companies. As a matter of fact, in many cases, they ignore the big companies because there's a lot more work to get into them. And they go after the smaller organizations because they know they can cripple them faster and they potentially have a better chance of getting more dollars faster and with a lot less work. While in the meantime, they're probably still going after the big ones too. They're spreading out their work and they're, giving themselves lots of different opportunities. Any organization that's looking to improve security should be considering something like MDR. And realistically, every organization should be looking to improve their cybersecurity, whether you're being forced to by cybersecurity insurance, because we're seeing more and more of that being forced on organizations, whether you want to because you have concerns about your risk, or whether you have government or other organizations that you deal with that want to understand what your cybersecurity posture is and what you're doing to protect your organization, and therefore their organization, because you do work of some type with them, and the data you have of theirs is potentially at risk, or you could be a risk to their organization as a whole. So MSP Corp has developed a really complete tool to step up the level of cybersecurity capabilities for small and medium enterprise organizations, really for everyone but the very largest of companies. And we have this Guardian Shield MDR in two different flavors. We have one for the organizations that have a robust IT team and have the skill and capacity in their team to be dealing with the alerts that the system generates and managing the majority of it themselves. And that's our self-managed solution. And then we have our co-managed solution, which is really designed for organizations that don't have a cybersecurity team, and especially those that don't have an IT team, generally our managed services type customers, where we deploy the tools, manage and monitor the service, and then work with the customer for any remediation activities that need to take place. So it's really the level of support that the organization wants with the tool set and the entire solution. What you're going to love about this solution and what it's going to provide for you that sets it apart from an individual antivirus or NDR or XDR solution is the alerts are prioritized based on a 24/7 security operations center. They're then also dealt with by a managed service provider who knows and understands your organization as well. As I mentioned, it's 24/7. We're doing domain monitoring. So have you ever received an email from someone at your organization, but one of the letters in the email address was a little bit different? We'll monitor for that. We'll alert on that. If suddenly a domain pops up that looks very much like yours, instead of Microsoft, it's Microsoft, we'll alert and we'll start blocking those emails coming into your environment. We do actual threat hunting with this service. So as we see threats popping up from whatever vehicle they came in from, we're able to start identifying them and seeing that risk. And in a lot of cases, we're able to see those threats before they've become completely active in the network. And we're actually able to tamp them down before they have a defined negative effect on your operations. Suspicious email analysis takes what we call spam protection to another level, and it looks at a little bit of AI to help understand what's happening in the emails that are coming into your organization. DNS firewall, some of your organizations may have this in place already as a piece of Microsoft Defender, for example. DNS firewall allows for the control of what websites you can go to, not so much by content, because a lot of organizations have content-based rules already, but a bad website pops up that's doing nefarious activity. You get an email with a link to that website. The DNS firewall says, no, we know that's a bad website. When you click on it, your browser comes up and doesn't let you go to that website, doesn't expose you to that risk. It blocks you from getting to that site so that you don't have to experience that risk in the first place. It is an active response-based system in the co-managed solution. So we're going to be there responding to any issues, proactively dealing with the risk before it has a major impact on your network. And then we have portals that you have access to, and we have reporting and roll-up information that's provided as a part of the solution. Most importantly, it's a complete solution. It's protecting your endpoints wherever they might be in the world. It's protecting the network, the core still of many organizations that still have servers on premise and have that. And if you don't have a lot of servers on premise, or you have a lot, we are protecting the cloud as well. So the data that's sitting in Microsoft 365, in G Suite, in Dropbox, those services are protected as well. So it is a complete solution that's analyzing both the devices and the hardware and the components, but also the systems people are using and the actions they're taking real time throughout the day, throughout the night, providing a complete 360-degree view and protection of the environment. And it's a layered approach. As I mentioned, a little bit of redundancy from a couple slides ago, but it is all of those pieces stacked on top of each other to make sure that we're covering all the different potential risk points. So why? Well, you're going to minimize your risk. We're going to help detect threats faster. and you're going to gain 24/7 cybersecurity expertise you don't have today. All of those are benefits that everyone needs now. And it's a complete set of components that work together with potentially the antivirus you already have today or the anomaly-based protection you have today, and or augments it with additional capabilities of tools and then the services behind it and the support behind those tools. And I'm going to ask John to join us now and take over sharing so he can give us a brief demo of the portal of one of the primary tools of the Guardian Shield solution that's a big part of the protection component.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tyson. So the underlying MDR platform is Field Effect. Field Effect is a Canadian company with ties and offices in the Five Eyes countries. We visited Field Effect's office. We have a great relationship with them, and it's truly is an amazing product. So just wanted to go through the portal here for your viewing in a couple minutes. As you can see at the dashboard, you're going to get notices for immediate actions required. Those notices will come by email. Those notices can go to a ticketing system like ConnectWise. In a co-managed state, any action required, observation, recommendation is going to go to a ticket, and our team will help respond to those. In a self-managed state, these can go to an email address or your own ticketing system, depending on the integrations available. But you're going to see the key areas of coverage. For a complete solution, you do have to cover the cloud, your endpoints, and the network. There's many integrations available. So for cloud, as Tyson mentioned, we can integrate with 365, Google. Your endpoints are key, right? We need to protect them wherever they are. There's no such thing as a perimeter. Yes, you might still have an office, and that office might have a firewall, but your machines are moving around. Your machines could work anywhere, connect anywhere. So we need to make sure they're protected with an endpoint agent. So I'm just going to go into each of these a little further. So you could see in the status here, we're monitoring the network at 2 locations. The network sensors at those locations can be physical or virtual. We are monitoring your computers, so physical computers, virtual servers, clients, Windows, Mac, Linux, you name it, there's an endpoint agent available. That endpoint agent is going to do not just the monitoring, but that endpoint agent is going to do the detection and response. So if a computer is misbehaving, the endpoint agent, the R and MDR response, is going to automatically stop processes. It's going to automatically isolate machines behaving badly or trying to infect other machines. The automated response extends to the cloud as well. If, for example, I log into my mailbox from Winnipeg and then Russia half an hour later, a sign-in will be blocked. So a big differentiator between MDR and other services is that automated response. The degree of that automated response is up to you, and I'll show you that in a moment here. Collecting logs is still important, but a traditional SIM, Security Incident Event Management Platform, collecting logs for the purpose of collecting logs, it's not relevant. It doesn't help protect you today. You may still have to collect logs for regulatory reasons, but just dumping logs to a central place is not good enough. And that's where an MDR tool comes in. There's really 2 key areas to Field Effect. One, you want to cover your endpoints, cloud, network, as we mentioned. If your office does not have a server, or if you're planning on getting rid of your servers and you have little infrastructure, you may not do a network sensor, but the complete coverage is those 3 components. Once endpoints are onboarded, the network sensor is monitoring your network, and 365 or Google are integrated, you're going to get what is called AROs. Think of AROs as alerts. Those are actions, recommendations, and observations. If we look at the status here, let me just break those down to you here. Generally speaking, an action needs urgent attention. So internal IT, internal security people, the security operations team that's looking at it 24/7, our team, right? These need urgent attention. These are likely attacks that have been blocked or attacks in their initial phase. Recommendations are just that. recommendations are items that need your attention, consideration, and planning. And then observations, they're going to essentially be anomalies or oddball events that need an additional set of eyes. So these AROs are broken down into 3 different types. And again, you could look at these AROs in the console. You can get them by email. You could get them in the ticketing platform. The secret sauce to Field Effect is the details of their AROs. So here's an example of an action. So this is an account risk. This is a demo tenant, of course. You're going to get the description of, what, why, when, how. You're going to get details of what affected, right? Is an endpoint? Is an account affected? You're going to get a clear recommendation, and you're going to get steps to resolve. Traditional SIMs, they send you an alert with raw logs. You have to interpret them. You have to figure out what's in scope. What should I be worried about? These arrows are extremely clear, and they give you specific steps. If the automated response hasn't done it for you already, here's are the specific steps. Do this, you're safe. So they're very clear, concise, and are really a key benefit of the product. I'm just going to fast forward a little bit here, given the time we have. We mentioned the automated response. Your organization is going to have a service profile in the platform, and the level of response you can have a say in. We typically recommend a balanced response, so isolate a server with strong indicators of compromise, lock an email account with suspicious activity or compromised logins from other places. If you're in a cyber incident or if you're experiencing attack in progress, we can deploy Field Effect for you as part of incident response, and we would set the automated response to aggressive. Aggressive is typically used for when it's a little bit too late, another way to put it. Last thing I want to talk about is the endpoint here. So the endpoint agent, so the EDR, endpoint detection and response, advanced detection and response, it's a full EDR. So it can complement Defender for Endpoint and add additional layers of protection. It looks at more behaviors, prevents east-west abuse and machines doing malicious things across the network. Field Effect works beautiful with the built-in Defender or the more protective advanced Defender. At the same time, Field Effect is meant to replace SentinelOne, CrowdStrike. Field Effect's endpoint was rated #1 on the MITRE attack tests, so it's extremely proven, safe, effective, does not inhibit performance. It's very well done. The last piece here is the integrations. So as mentioned, Field Effect can protect your 365 space. It can protect your Google. There's also integrations for AWS, identity providers like Okta and Duo, storage providers like Dropbox and Box.
Sorry,
and
John, I stole your screen, just so you know.
Oh.
So I thought you were done, so I grabbed the next
no worries.
thing. So thank you very much. That's fantastic. I just wanted to wrap up. I know I didn't want to keep people too long because I know we had this scheduled for a half hour. So I just wanted to get a couple small points in before we're done. And we certainly can stay around for any questions anyone has. Next steps, when we have one of these conversations, we always want to understand what are the best next steps. Certainly reach out to us if you have any questions. But a summary of what everyone should understand about cybersecurity is understand your posture. Look at getting an assessment if you haven't had one done, or completing an assessment yourself. Understand regulatory requirements. Understand integration with existing systems, customization and scalability, 24/7 monitoring and support risk. Have you done any incident response planning? And do you understand the cost-benefit analysis of purchasing a service like this versus what the cost is going to be from downtime and the risk your organization is at? If you haven't done any kind of assessments, or you're not sure what level of risk your organization has from an external perspective, even if you have done an assessment, we very much value the time that you spend with us in these webinars. We really understand how hard it is for people to take time out of their day to attend these. And we have offered to provide of a no-cost Guardian Shield MDR attack surface report. So this would do an external review of what we see as risks for your organization from the outside right now. So it's not as involved as a penetration test, but it's an idea of what is the current risk that you look like to the outside world right now, to the bad actors, that helps them understand if there's someone they want to poke more at, or if someone they go, oh, okay, let's move on to the next one that's easier. You know, it's kind of like a burglar. They're going to go down the street and they're going to pull door handles, and the ones that are locked, they're probably just going to walk on by. The ones that are unlocked, that's when they're going to go in and look for what they can find. So we want to understand, you know, very high level and help you understand what your current risk might be. So thanks again for your time. Very much appreciated. If you have any questions or you're interested in that attack surface report, if you don't have a direct contact for any of our organizations today, please reach out to us at cybersecurity@mspcorp.ca. If you already have someone you're used to dealing with, certainly reach out to that individual as well, and we'll make some time for questions. You can certainly ask questions in the chat if that works for you. Feel free, if you want, to raise your, or let us know in the chat, and we can open up your microphone and camera if you want to ask live. So we have a couple of questions already. First one is how's the performance of the DNS firewall, and what infrastructure does it run on? John, you
I
want
can
to
take that one?
take
Yeah,
that
you
one?
bet. So DNS protection at the endpoint is very lightweight. As part of the endpoint agent that goes on the computers, it's doing that DNS protection to prevent computers from going to malware and phishing sites. Very lightweight. You can also do the DNS protection at the firewall, but if you have a firewall, for example, if you have a FortiGate with a Fortinet subscription, we would use FortiGate's DNS web filtering because it's already as part of the firewall. But the long story short is the DNS client is very lightweight, non-intrusive. It's not filtering by
Yeah. And it's running on
categories.
every device everywhere. So as your devices are mobile, they're not behind your corporate firewall that's usually giving you that protection. You now get to carry that DNS, that website protection with your devices everywhere they go. Our next question was, do we need to be an existing client to get the attack surface report? Absolutely not. We can provide that attack surface report to anyone. We'll reach out to you. We'll have a couple of questions that we need to understand, and then we can run it and generate that report and provide it back to you. And I see someone else is just typing a question right now. And John and I get very excited when there's questions, because not always are there questions afterwards. So this is what we consider the interactive part, the funnest part of these for us. I'm just waiting while someone's typing. No pressure to type faster. Take your time. For the endpoints, are you able to adjust the MDR automatic policy doesn't act on certain applications? Yes, we can put filters in to control applications and how their impact is. And actually, often when we first put the system in, we'll say, oh, there's a learning curve here for the system for us to understand. You may get some of your applications blocked, and we keep a very active eye on it right in the first couple of weeks of deployment, because we do run into that, especially if you've got some application development you're doing in-house, or you've got some applications that have been developed for you that aren't well-known applications. We will often see some or a portion of those blocked, or we'll see some applications really overwhelm the engine at different times. Sometimes backup systems and so forth can do that. So there's different filters we can put in to help manage that. Another question is, where is our SOC, our Security Operations Center? It's located in Canada. What kind of costs? It's very dependent on whether you're looking at the self-managed or the co-managed service. I don't have those right off the top of my head. I'd have to follow up with someone from the sales team. I don't know if there's anyone on the sales team who's here who wants to jump in on that, but I don't know those costs right off the top of my head.
I think I can answer, Tyson. The self-managed is $10 per user per month, and the co-managed is $25 per user per month.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. How does this compare to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint? So John talked to it a little bit. I'll talk to it at less technical, and John might want to add some technical into it. If we look at cybersecurity protection, Windows Defender, the base antivirus that comes from Microsoft, would be not good by itself. Microsoft Defender for endpoint would be like a Sentinel-1. It's an EDR solution, so it's going to be it's going to be good to better depending on how much of it you have deployed. When you put field effect in, and especially when you put it in on top of Defender for Endpoint, it takes Defender from Endpoint from good, better to best. It's taking it to that world-class level because Defender for Endpoint has certain things that it's able to detect, but then there's areas that it's not as strong in, and the field effect agent really bolsters those areas where Defender for Endpoint or other typical EDR solutions are weak. So it stacks very well on top of Defender for Endpoint. Obviously, there's, Defender for Endpoint has a cost, and then adding this on has a cost, but every level of protection you add on in most things has a cost. So you're just making it stronger, and you're making your overall cybersecurity protection better by putting this on top of Defender for Endpoint. So our entry-level recommendation at a minimum is put field effect on top of Windows Defender, because you'll be better than a regular antivirus product, and you'll even be better than some of the other EDR products that are out there. When you add field effect to something like Defender for Endpoint, you really step it up significantly. John, do you want to add any detail to that? I guess it's really the SOC side of it, and it's the alerting and monitoring that doesn't come with Defender for Endpoint out of the box, right?
Yeah, so field effect is adding the alerts, the monitoring, the ability to automatically respond, isolate machines, and stop bad things from happening. And then field effect has their own rules, so their EDR or response rules, right? They're taking the knowledge from the threats out in the world and writing those rules to complement and add to Defender's own.
Yeah, when field effect is fully deployed, and Guardian Shield is actually multiple sets of tools. There's there's a vulnerability assessment and review portion to it. There's an Office 365 real-time security analysis and remediation component to it. So it is a suite of tools. The core tool is field effect, which is the one that provides the advanced endpoint detection and response and provides the security operations center and the alerting capabilities. When we set it up and configure it, all the alerts are coming in from all of the different components, the network, the endpoints, and the cloud services. And rarely does any cybersecurity event happen in isolation. We see different action points of it taking place when it's trying to, and we're stopping it, or as it's actually active if we're not able to fully prevent it. But we see all the different triggers in those different levels. So alerts get triggered at the endpoint, alerts get triggered at the firewall, alerts get triggered on the servers and at the network level. All of that comes together where we see, oh, there's this happening here, that happening there, that happening there. And it's a full protected review of what's going on. Defender for Endpoint is just that endpoint protection piece. It doesn't know about what's going on through the firewall. It doesn't know what's going on about other devices on the network. It's I'm looking and protecting one endpoint at a time only solution. When we stack field effect on top, we expand that to the entire network and the cloud. So we're able to leverage identities being put at risk in the cloud and understand the risk that puts to the device that user uses every day and correlate those events. So it's a lot of event correlation, and then it dramatically improves the root cause analysis whenever there is any type of a cybersecurity event, and or the prevention of an event while we see certain actions taking place in the environment. Any other questions? Anything else anyone would like to see from the console? John has a few more minutes to demonstrate at this point. If you have very specific questions, we might have to take it in dedicated offline conversation. We can talk about how it could apply to your specific environment, because I recognize some of the names that are on the meeting today, and they're very different businesses that may have different organizations that may have different focuses of where they need to focus their protection. Yes, it does watch for both dark web and domain spoofing. So that domain spoofing, that part where a different letter in the email domain, definitely watches for that. And dark web monitoring and protection is built into the solution as well. And both of those are monitored and dealt with 24/7 with the SOC as well, and real-time alerts and notifications and remediation.
I'll share my screen again briefly here just to show you some of the reporting available, and that will cover off. So again, everything is automated. Every alert, recommendation, observation is going to generate an email or a ticket, depending how you have that set up. But there's numerous reports, and all of these reports can be automated. So there's weekly, monthly reports, there's risk summaries, executive summaries, vulnerability reports, and the dark web report as per the question asked there.
John, if you're sharing, I don't know if it's just me on my end. Oh, there we go. Yeah, see your screen now. Yeah, and the reports are, they're going to be semi-technical, but some of the reports are information you can definitely directly use with senior management in your organizations to start giving them an idea of what kind of protection is being provided and helping to show the value of the service right away. So you have some information by which to go, okay, we're spending all this money. What are we getting out of it? We can talk about what you're getting out of it very easily.
One of the other side benefits, right, as you improve your security posture and work on different programs and tools and plans, right, you will see your risk score go up in a portal like this.
And in this case, technically, we want the risk score to go down.
Down.
It's really high that it's bad. And if when we have deployed this in an active incident, it's in that 90+ range right out of the box. There's all kinds of risks that are being set off or triggered depending on what type of action is taking place. And it's interesting, in a real-time event that's taking place, we start to see this impact all different types of parts of the network simultaneously, and we start getting all those alerts all at once. The risk score is not tied to any specific security framework. It's really their own internal risk score for understanding what systems are at risk. A lot of the frameworks talk about what protection tools and policies you have for your system. So this is not a reporting pack of how are you doing against a security framework. The entire Guardian Shield MDR is about things you've implemented to improve your overall cybersecurity compliance.
And we're really excited about this, as they'll be adding the CIS framework, the Center for Internet Security framework, very soon, but the default is their own.
Yeah, so that's coming soon. And so we will be able to understand in here and report back, here are all the controls. And I mean, John can take an action now for the customers that have this service and our virtual chief information security officer service that we offer, where John acts as a fractional security officer for your organization. He can leverage the field effect information, even what's there now, because he can map it to CIS, just more work, to help understand where is this improving your overall security posture, and what parts of field effect haven't we deployed for whatever variety of reasons. Because when we start the deployment, we'll talk about, okay, do you want to do all of this? And most people go, whoa, we're not ready for all of this yet. And then we talk about what amount of the set of tools you want to deploy in which order based on the amount of impact it's going to have to your environment. And so that as we work through that deployment, we start to see the improvements of the different parts of a CIS framework score, for example. And once it's complete, we see a number of improvements that have happened. Like anything else, the monitoring and the management service is a big part of what maintains those scores that reflect back in CIS, because putting the tools in by itself does a certain part of improving your score and improving your security posture. Keeping it running properly, keeping it up to date, keeping it functioning and doing what it's supposed to be doing is the most critical part of making sure that these solutions are providing that complete security posture, the tools and the framework together. Well,
And maybe
thanks
I'll
everyone.
add, sorry, Tyson.
What's that?
Sorry, Tyson, I just add one quick thing about pricing. There is different models around cloud only and some different options depending on the type of organization. So for example, if you have a lot of students, there's a different pricing option. So that would be worth asking about as well.
Yeah, depending on the type of organization, the prices that Caroline talked a little bit earlier, that's a typical environment that has their own computers they own, they have a network, and they have cloud services. As John mentioned, there are some different options if you're cloud only, or you only want to do the cloud protection because you don't have the option or budget at this point to protect the network and the endpoints as well. Obviously, we'd always like to protect everything, but I mean, cybersecurity protection can be very costly. So we're always out having that conversation with customers of having to balance, cost versus result. And this is one of those tools that can help deliver a lot of that information, but it still is an additional cost. So we understand that very much. If there's no other questions, then thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time. Please reach out to any contact you already have within the organization. If you don't have one, again, cybersecurity@mspcorp.ca if you're not sure who to reach out to. And we can certainly continue the conversation, provide that attack surface report, or have any other conversations about cybersecurity. John and I both like to talk about it a lot. It's a pretty passionate subject for both of us. Again, really appreciate everyone taking their time. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you.